The dust tastes like copper and dried blood. It coats the back of your throat, a gritty reminder that the high desert doesn't care if you live or die. The sun is a white hammer beating down on the sandstone cliffs, baking the air until it shimmers. In this heat, metal burns the skin. But Elias doesn't let go. He can't. His knuckles are white, fused to the steel and walnut wood of the rifle in his hands. He is pinned behind the carcass of a horse that took a bullet meant for him 3 hours ago. 3 hours of silence, 3 hours of waiting for a shadow to move. Elias checks his ammo belt. He doesn't look down, he feels the weight. The loops are half empty, but what matters isn't just the number of rounds left. It's the realization that 50 yards ahead, hidden in the rocks, are 5 men who know exactly how a standard army rifle works. They know the rhythm of the reload. They are counting on the pause. They are waiting for that 3-second gap where a soldier has to lower his weapon, open the breech, fumble for a cartridge, and shove it in. That 3-second gap is where men die. It is the silence between the thunder where a life is extinguished. But Elias isn't holding an army rifle. He is holding a machine that changed the geometry of survival. He is holding a piece of engineering that doesn't ask him to pause. It only asks him to find a rhythm. The enemy thinks they have him trapped in the logic of the past, in the slow, deliberate warfare of the single shot. They are about to discover that the rules have changed. They are about to hear a sound that will define a century. But as the first shadow moves and Elias raises the barrel, a terrifying thought grips him. In a world where stopping power is worshipped, did he make a fatal mistake by trusting his life to a gun that shoots a pistol bullet? To understand why a man would bet his life on a rifle that many generals considered a toy, we have to look at the landscape of the American West in 1876. It wasn't the romanticized playground of film. It was a place of crushing isolation. The distances were so vast, they defied comprehension. A man could ride for weeks without seeing a fence post, let alone another human being. In this void, your equipment wasn't just property. It was the only thing standing between you and the elements, or you and the predators. The West was a place where logistics went to die. If you ran out of water, you died. If your horse threw a shoe and you didn't have a rasp and nails, you died. And if you carried a rifle that took 45-70 government rounds, and a pistol that took 45 Colt, and you ran out of one while having plenty of the other, you died. The complexity of supply was the silent killer of the frontier. The establishment, the army, the law enforcement agencies in the East believed in power. They believed in heavy lead thrown over long distances. They looked at warfare as a series of deliberate, calculated volleys. But out here, amidst the mesquite and the canyons, combat wasn't a calculated volley. It was a chaotic, close-quarters scramble in the dirt. It was an ambush at a watering hole. It was a sudden eruption of violence that lasted 30 seconds and left everyone breathless. The intrigue lies in a simple, mechanical disconnect. The official doctrine said, "Make every shot count with a big bullet." The reality of the frontier screamed, "Keep shooting, or you will be overwhelmed." Into this gap between theory and reality stepped a weapon that wasn't designed for the army. It was designed for the individual. It promised something no other long gun had ever offered: the ability to carry a toolbox of violence that fit on your saddle and shared the same food as the iron on your hip. But was convenience worth the loss of power? Let's meet the man behind the rock, Elias Thorne. 42 years old, though his skin looks like cured leather, mapping 60 years of sun and wind. Elias isn't a hero in the classical sense. He is a survivor. He lists his profession as scout for the Overland Stage Company, but in truth, he is a troubleshooter. When the lines of communication break down, when a shipment vanishes, Elias rides out. He wears a dust-caked duster coat patched at the elbows. His hat is pulled low, not for style, but to preserve the moisture in his eyes. He moves with a stiffness in his left leg, a souvenir from a Confederate saber at Antietam, a war he tries hard to forget. Elias is a man of economy. He speaks few words because words dry out your mouth. He moves little because movement burns calories he can't easily replace. Before this crisis, Elias was a traditionalist. He carried a Sharps buffalo rifle, a single-shot monster that could drop a bison at 600 yards. He respected the power. He respected the range. He was a man who believed in the one-shot, one-kill philosophy because that was what he was taught. He was a methodical man in a chaotic world. He had a wife once in Kansas. She died of cholera. He had a farm. The bank took it. Now all he has is his horse, a quarter-horse mix named Judge, and his gear. Elias represents the transition of the West. He is caught between the era of the mountain man, solitary, slow, deliberate, and the coming era of the industrial cowboy. He is tired of the weight. He is tired of the heavy ammunition belts dragging his hips down. He is tired of fumbling for different cartridges in the dark when the wolves are circling. He is a man looking for an edge, not realizing that the edge he is about to find will demand a completely different way of fighting. Is a man defined by the traditions he upholds or by the adaptations he is willing to make when the fire starts? Before the canyon, before the ambush, let's look at the world Elias lived in. The status quo of Western combat was dictated by the single-shot breech loader, the trapdoor Springfield, the Sharps, the Remington rolling block. These were magnificent weapons of precision. If you saw an enemy on a ridge 500 yards away, you could set your sights, account for the wind, and drop him. But the status quo had a rhythm, and it was a slow staccato beat. Boom, lower the rifle, open the breech, extract the shell, reach for the belt, insert new shell, close the breech, cock the hammer, raise the rifle, aim, boom. This process took time. In a drill on a parade ground, a good soldier could fire 3 rounds a minute. In a panic, with adrenaline shaking your hands and sweat stinging your eyes, that rate dropped. And God forbid you dropped a cartridge in the sand. For years, Elias rode with this rhythm. He accepted it as the law of physics. You trade speed for power. That was the deal. His saddlebags were heavy with boxes of .50 caliber ammunition for his rifle and .44 caliber for his revolver. He was a walking logistics nightmare. He had to think about which pouch he was reaching into. In the middle of the night, woken by the snap of a twig, that split-second hesitation to identify the bullet by touch could be fatal. There was a heavy lumbering quality to this existence. Combat was stationary. You found cover, you fired, you reloaded. You were an artillery piece of one. The idea of fire superiority, of putting so much lead in the air that the enemy couldn't lift their heads, was a concept for Gatling guns, not for a man on a horse. The world was slow, heavy, and unforgiving of a missed shot. But the West was changing. The enemies weren't just standing on ridges anymore. They were riding fast. They were charging. The engagement distances were shrinking. The status quo was becoming a death trap. But the military manuals hadn't been rewritten yet. How long can you cling to the old ways when the world around you is speeding up? The crack in the armor of the single-shot rifle wasn't just about speed, it was about failure. The reality of war in the West was dirty, literally, sand, grit, black powder residue. The standard issue ammunition for many rifles of the era used copper casings. Copper is a soft metal. When a large charge of black powder detonates, the case expands violently to seal the chamber. That's good. But as the rifle heats up from repeated firing, that copper expands and sticks. The extractor, the little metal claw meant to pull the empty shell out, would often tear through the soft copper rim, leaving the empty, expanded shell stuck fast in the chamber. This was the nightmare scenario. You fire your shot, you try to open the breech, the extractor slips. You are now holding a 10-pound club. To fix it, you have to find a knife or a ramrod, pry the hot metal out of the chamber, all while bullets are whizzing past your ears. Elias had seen it happen. He saw a young trooper in the Arizona Territory die trying to pry a stuck casing out of his Springfield. The boy was crying, digging at the breech with his fingernails, while the Apache warriors closed the distance. The rifle, designed for power, had become a useless stick because of a technical flaw in the environment. Furthermore, the recoil of these big guns was punishing. After 20 shots, your shoulder was bruised black and blue. The flinch set in. You started anticipating the kick, pulling your shots. And once you fired, the muzzle rise was so significant that you lost your sight picture completely. You had to reacquire the target from scratch every single time. This was the reality. Powerful guns that jammed when hot, punished the shooter, and left you defenseless for 10 seconds at a time. It was a system that worked for hunting buffalo, beasts that didn't shoot back. But for hunting men, or defending against them, it was a gamble with terrible odds. If your weapon fails you when you need it most, is it a weapon or is it a liability? The disconnect was profound. In Washington, the Ordnance Department argued that repeating rifles, guns that could shoot multiple times without reloading, were a bad idea for the common soldier. Their reasoning was economic and psychological. They believed that if you gave a soldier a gun that could shoot fast, he would waste ammunition. He would spray and pray. They called it ammunition discipline. They wanted every shot to be calculated. They also argued that the pistol cartridges used in repeaters like the Winchester lacked stopping power. A .44-40 round might not kill a horse at 500 yards. A .45-70 would. Therefore, the .45-70 was superior. But Elias, sitting in the dirt of the Badlands, knew that the Ordnance Department didn't understand the psychological reality of being shot at. When a bullet cracks past your head, you don't calculate the ballistic coefficient. You duck, you hide. The doctrine ignored the concept of suppression. It ignored the fact that most gunfights in the West happened at less than 100 yards, often less than 50. At that range, a .44-40 hole in the chest kills you just as dead as a rifle round. But you can put 3 of them in the target in the time it takes to fire one big round. The doctrine prioritized the machine over the man. It assumed the soldier was a robot who would never miss, never panic, and never need a follow-up shot instantly. The reality was that fear makes hands shake. Fear makes you miss, and when you miss with a single-shot rifle, you pay for it with time you don't have. Elias watched good men die because they were following a doctrine written by men sitting at desks. He saw the graves filled by ammunition discipline. When the people making the rules are safe and the people following them are dying, at what point does disobedience become a duty? Elias made a choice. It was a quiet rebellion. He walked into a hardware store in Dodge City months before the ambush. He put down 3 months of wages, a staggering sum for a scout. He didn't buy the government surplus. He didn't buy the long-range sharps. He pointed to the rifle on the wall. The Winchester Model 1873, the center fire. It was sleek. It didn't look like a military musket. It had a tubular magazine running under the barrel that held 15 rounds of .44-40 ammunition. 15. To a man used to one, 15 felt like infinity. But the real rebellion wasn't just the gun, it was the system. Elias bought a Colt Frontier 6-shooter revolver chambered in the exact same caliber, .44-40. He went to the general store and bought 1,000 rounds of one type of ammunition. He dumped his heavy distinct belts. He loaded his saddlebags. Now if he reached for a bullet, it fit. It fit the rifle. It fit the pistol. There was no confusion, no sorting, just a universal fuel for his tools. His peers mocked him. "That's a Pea-Shooter, Elias," they said. "You hit a bandit with that at 300 yards, he's just gonna get mad." Elias didn't argue. He took the rifle out to the dry riverbed. He didn't practice shooting at 500 yards. He practiced the action. He learned the toggle link mechanism. He learned that he didn't have to take the butt plate off his shoulder to cycle the gun. He could keep his cheek welded to the wood, his eye looking down the buckhorn sights. With a flick of his fingers, down, up, the brass flew out, and a new round was chambered. Clack, clack. It became a dance. He wasn't fighting the gun, he was shaking hands with it. The recoil was negligible compared to the buffalo guns. He could stay on target. He could track a moving jackrabbit and put dust around its feet 3 times in 2 seconds. He realized something the generals missed. The gun wasn't just a launcher for lead, it was an extension of his will. The weakness of the cartridge was the strength of the system. Low recoil meant control. Control meant hits. And hits meant survival. But practicing on jackrabbits is one thing. Trusting it when 5 killers are closing in is another. Can a tool designed for convenience survive the brutality of a siege? Back in the canyon, The sun is lower now, casting long, deceiving shadows. The silence breaks. A shout echoes off the canyon walls. The bandits are moving. They've grown impatient. They think Elias is wounded or out of ammo. They make their move, breaking cover, rushing from rock to rock, closing the distance from 50 yards to 30. Elias takes a breath. He smells the sagebrush and the sweat. He shoulders the Winchester 1873. The first man pops up on the left. Elias fires. Bang! The bullet strikes the man's shoulder, spinning him around. In the old world, Elias would now be blind, looking down to reload. In this world, Elias's fingers twitch. The lever goes down. The lever goes up. Clack, clack. The brass casing spins in the air, catching the sunlight like a golden coin. The rifle never leaves his shoulder. His eye never leaves the sight. The second man sees his friend fall and hesitates. That hesitation is his death warrant. Elias shifts his aim 3 degrees to the right. Bang, center mass. The lever moves again. Clack, clack. It's hypnotic. It's a mechanical heartbeat. The remaining 3 men are confused. They heard 2 shots in 2 seconds. They are waiting for the pause. They are waiting for the reload. They rush forward, thinking they have the window of opportunity. They are running into a wall of lead. Elias fires again, and again, and again. Bang, clack, clack, bang, clack, clack, bang. He isn't panicked. The low recoil of the 4440 allows him to watch the impacts. He sees the dust fly. He sees the panic in their eyes. They aren't facing a man. They are facing a regiment. The air is filled with the buzzing of bees. One bandit, terrified by the volume of fire, freezes in the open. Elias puts 2 rounds into the dirt at his feet and the 3rd into his leg. The bandit falls. The last 2 scramble back, diving behind the rocks, screaming. They are suppressed. They can't lift their heads because every time they do, a bullet is there waiting for them. Elias has fired 8 rounds in 10 seconds. He still has 7 in the tube. He hasn't moved his hand from the trigger guard. He hasn't looked away. The canyon is silent again, but the dynamic has shifted violently. The predators have become the prey. The sheer psychological terror of a gun that doesn't stop shooting has broken their will. Elias sits behind his cover, his heart hammering against his ribs, but his hands are steady. He tops off the magazine through the side gate. Click, click, click. The sound of the spring compressing is the sound of safety. He hasn't just won a firefight. He has validated a philosophy. When the enemy expects a duel and you bring a storm, who decides when the fighting stops? Elias survived the canyon. He rode back into town with 3 prisoners and the bodies of the others draped over their horses. But what drew the crowd wasn't the prisoners. It was the story the prisoners told. He didn't reload. One of the bandits mumbled to the sheriff, eyes wide with disbelief. He just kept shooting, like the devil was cranking the handle. The story of the spirit gun spread. But it wasn't magic. It was the Winchester. Cowboys who spent their lives in the saddle looked at Elias's setup. They saw the common sense of it. 1 caliber for rifle and pistol, no mix-ups, and a rifle flat enough to slide into a scabbard under the leg, smooth as a river stone. The statistical shift was undeniable. Texas Rangers began adopting the model 1873. They realized that when chasing Comanches or outlaws on horseback, accuracy at 600 yards meant nothing. Firepower at 50 yards meant everything. The Winchester became a verb. To Winchester, someone meant to overwhelm them with speed. Hardware stores couldn't keep them in stock. The 4440 cartridge became the currency of the frontier. You could find it in every general store from Missouri to California. The gun wasn't just a weapon anymore. It was a ubiquitous tool, as essential as a branding iron or a coil of rope. It was the extension of the body. It didn't require a soldier's drill to operate. It required a worker's rhythm. The army eventually had to acknowledge it, though they were stubborn. But the men on the ground, the scouts, the deputies, the ranch hands, they voted with their dollars. They chose the gun that didn't jam, the gun that didn't kick them black and blue, and the gun that allowed them to be a one-man army. When a tool changes the behavior of an entire culture, does it cease to be an object and become a legend? Years later, Elias is older. The West is tamed. Fences cut across the open range. The buffalo are gone, replaced by cattle. Elias sits on a porch, cleaning the same model 1873. The bluing on the steel is gone, worn away to a silvery gray by years of friction against saddle leather and denim. The wood is scratched, each mark a memory of a rock, a fall, or a fight. A young deputy approaches him. The boy is carrying a new, high-powered bolt-action rifle. He looks at Elias's worn-out lever gun with a hint of pity. "Don't you want something with more reach, old-timer?" The deputy asks. "That thing is an antique. Pistol bullets don't fly far." Elias works the lever. Clack, clack. The sound is smooth like oil on glass. It's a sound that comforted him in the darkest nights. He looks at the boy. "Son," Elias says, his voice like gravel, "this gun doesn't need to reach far, it just needs to be ready. It's the gun that brought me home." He hands the rifle to the boy. The deputy feels the balance. It's light. It feels alive in the hands, centered, pointable. It doesn't feel like a heavy machine. It feels like a part of the arm. The boy understands, for a fleeting moment, the intimacy of the weapon. Elias wasn't a general. He wasn't a war hero in the history books. He was just a man who had a job to do in a harsh land, and this rifle was the partner that allowed him to do it. It was the democratization of firepower. It gave the lone rider a chance against the gang. It gave the settler a chance against the raid. The recognition wasn't in medals. It was in the fact that Elias died in his bed of old age, not in a canyon with an empty, jammed, single-shot rifle in his hands. The Winchester Model 1873 became known as the gun that won the West. A bold claim, perhaps marketing hyperbole. But strip away the slogan and look at the metal. Look at the toggle link action. Look at the dust cover. It is a testament to American pragmatism. It wasn't the most powerful. It wasn't the most accurate, but it was the most reliable friend a man could have when the world turned violent. It turned the complex mechanics of warfare into a simple motion of the hand. It allowed the shooter to focus on the threat, not the tool. Today, these rifles sit in museums behind glass. They are silent now. But if you look closely at the loading gate, you can see the brass streaks. If you look at the lever, you can see where the sweat of a frightened man wore down the steel. These aren't just artifacts. They are frozen moments of survival. They are the steel echoes of men like Elias, who faced the overwhelming odds of the frontier and decided that they wouldn't go down without a fight. A fast, rhythmic, thunderous fight. The legacy of the Winchester isn't in the wars it won, but in the lives it saved. It reminds us that sometimes the best solution isn't the biggest or the strongest, but the one that works in perfect harmony with the human hand. What is the Winchester in your life? What is the tool or the strategy you use that might not be the most powerful according to the experts, but is the one that never lets you down when the pressure is on? Do you prefer the raw power of the single shot, or the reliability and rhythm of the lever action? If this story of survival and mechanical ingenuity sparked a fire in you, leave a comment below with, "I'll take the lever." Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories of the machines.